And we're going live, and we're live now. It's a great Wednesday. This is the first podcast of the Fully Human Connections. Um, I'm King, and I'm sitting here with my great co-host Kent. And how you
Hello.
doing? How you doing today, Kent?
I am. I'm well today. It's one of those days. I'm grateful for many things, and I'm deeply saddened at the same time. So paradox is real, my friend.
Absolutely. Before we get into today's show, one of the things I want to, really begin to establish as, one of the things I think we should do is just kind of, you just alluded to it there, was just kind of say what we're grateful for,
Mm.
right? Just kind of build that energy of gratitude. I think we can get into our discussion today, right? 'Cause I
Oh,
think
beautiful.
that's one of the elements of being fully human.
100%. Yeah. So I'll just say I am deeply grateful for my kids, especially in the wake of what's unfolding in Texas. That I have safe kids. That's what I'm most deeply grateful for today. How about you?
Well, I would say I'm grateful for my life, and my mother still been alive,
Mm.
still having sound mind, and being a person who is, I think, one of the most kindest, beautifulest person I've ever met on this
Mm.
planet. So I'm grateful still to have her energy and her presence
Mm.
still a part of my life at this stage of my life. That's, I would say,
Mm.
one of the most grateful things I'm grateful for.
I feel that too, and I share that blessing with you. My mother's still alive and of sound mind, as is my father. So I feel really grateful to have both my parents here still as well. I feel that, yeah.
Feel yours as well. I
Mm.
feel yours for your kids as well because, one of the things that is definitely something that should be impacting everyone that is familiar with the story is 19 kids that were senselessly murdered in Texas. You know, and I'm just really, what's really, I would say, troubling for me is this level of hatred that is growing in this country or in this world, not necessarily this country, in the world itself, where people can say to themselves, you get so compelled that the action that you take is that I'm actually going to walk into elementary school and shoot as many people as I can until I get stopped somehow or another. And that's your dominating thought. So for me, it's like for that to consume a person to that degree, to plan that, and then execute that. I really question as a society, how do we prevent that?
Mm. Yeah.
Because
I,
it's because as tragic as that was, like I said, what I'm more concerned about is that it's not going to be the last. And it's like, school shootings are now, ever since Columbine, have now just become a normal part of our lives, and we become almost desensitized to it. I mean, we discuss it for a moment, and then it just moves on. And so those are my initial thoughts. I just want to, I don't
yeah.
have any kids, so as a parent, I would love to get your thoughts and your feedback on that.
Yeah. Well, it was a really hard morning today. It was a hard day yesterday as a parent. And forgive me if I cry a little. I'm an emotional person. And I
Mm,
think if one's not moved to tears by this tragedy, maybe one's not paying attention. Maybe one needs to look at the quality of their attention if they're not moved and deeply disturbed by this continuing to happen. Um,
absolutely.
what one of the um, I would call it a blessing, but it's a teaching Jiddu Krishnamurti that I remembered and gave rise to the expression of fully human. Um, and I think his quote is really pertinent to the sentiment that you started with today, King, and that is, it is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society, and a society that has as a pattern people walking into elementary schools and murdering children is a profoundly sick society. And so anyone who's well adjusted and thinks that this is okay in any way, shape, or form is profoundly sick. And so the inquiry that we're in as our work is who do we have to become? What's it going to take for us to evolve to embody more of our full humanity so this senseless violence stops? And what work do we have to do together as a species to make that be true?
Amen.
So, one of the hardest things that I am learning and still learning, and I'm not completely skillful in it yet, but is how does one hold the grief and the anger and rage that is stirred in the wake of this kind of violence, and simultaneously hold compassion for the poor soul that felt like that was their only move to make. That was their only choice that they had. That was the best choice they could think of, was to go make that move.
Right.
How sick and how much pain must that person be in?
Absolutely.
Right. So to be like that, and that takes work to be able to hold compassion for the pain that must be endured by someone to commit that kind of act.
It does.
And I
It
don't know how
does.
to do it. I'm working hard at it.
Yeah, I would say at this stage of my spiritual development, I'm not there either, because the planning it took. I mean, this is premeditated. This is not just something that just happened in the spur of the moment. This was intentional. This was methodical. This is something that the person had in their mind for possibly weeks. And to walk again into the elementary school where this person knew that that's the most least dangerous position for him to put himself in. And so he chose the most cowardly act possible, you know. So it's hard to have compassion for someone who actually is in that space,
It
you know.
is. And in the spirit of our coming together, King, and the way you and I connect, my understanding of, albeit limited, my understanding of these types of situations is that more often than not, the perpetrator of these kinds of acts feels deeply disconnected from themselves,
Hmm.
feels deeply disconnected from any sense of uh, connection with other human beings. And when we think about addictions and things like that, it's like it's a loss of connection. So I also just want a presence, as you and I come together in this new experiment, in our new connection. I just want to honor and acknowledge you, my friend. I have felt very connected to you as a human being since the first conversation we had, and I'm deeply honored for us to bring our sense of connectedness forward and invite a forum for people to come in and get connected to what it means to be fully human, get connected to what it means to be fully human at work, for that matter. So much of work today, there's a lot being written about the great resignation. There's a lot being written about toxic work environments. There's a lot being written about. I saw a conversation you had with Norm Wolf, who I know and have been in conversation with him before, and how most organizations, you know, uh, dull the spirit of people. And part of what fully human at work is what if work could be one of the most enlivening and life enriching parts of our experience?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to thank some of our listeners for chiming in. And Karen Medford, thank you for watching and participating and investing your time and energy in your comments. And I just want to post one of her comments here. Loving
Mm-hmm.
kindness practice is daily in a life's work. Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, and that's what I think that's really missing from society. I think, one of the things I use this analogy real quick, that I live in the city of Baltimore,
Mm-hmm.
and I live in one of the neighborhoods that I'm working to transform, right? Because I don't believe in putting people on a block for development that I refuse to live on and live in on myself, right? And one of the things I struggle with is that folks constantly come by and just throw trash on the streets,
Mm-hmm.
right? Trash in front of my house. So I have to go out there and pick up the trash. Why? I'm not responsible for that trash, but I'm accountable to that. because I have to improve my community. So even though I'm not responsible for actually putting the trash, I'm accountable. And so my question now, with in that context, when do we as a society say we're accountable for producing the movies, the music,
Right.
the the very culture of violence? I mean, I can't watch, and I'm a person that grew up watching TV and watching movies, so I love watching TV and movies. I discipline myself not to, and it keeps me in the right space. But my point is, I can't watch movies and TV without seeing violence. Gun violence is just the norm. You're gonna watch that constantly. So for me, it's like, at what point do we say, as a society, we're accountable to that? And maybe we should stop for a summer. Let's not produce any more violent movies, any more violent TV shows, and let's just watch if that slows down this
Mm.
desire to go out here and have all these mass shootings. You know, and I want to post another comment from Karen, and she says, "Until we all decide that humans and their safety is a purpose, we will run into the cycle again and again."
Mhm.
Absolutely, Karen. Absolutely. So, what do you think about that, Kent, as we begin to really explore, as we talk about being fully human and being fully making fully human connections?
Yeah. Well, first, thank you, Karen, for engaging in this way. It's great to have you with us. Loving kindness practices and all of
Awesome.
that. Yeah, the interconnectedness, beautiful. Um, words like responsibility, accountability, as I've experienced these in my life and in my life's work as I coach, leaders and executives and all over the world, really, it's somehow this notion of responsibility seems to, in many cases, shifted towards people feeling like it's something that's being put upon them. Like, oh gosh, I'm responsible. Don't put that on me. That's it's not mine. It's not my job to pick up the trash. It's not, I didn't put it there. So why are you putting that responsibility on me? Right. And so it's like it's taken on this weird shape. And as my coach Morley and a number of us explore, what if we were to reorient ourselves to what responsibility might mean, to become something more in the direction of I'm able to respond. I'm response able.
Hmm.
Oh, so what am I able to respond to? Well, I'm able to respond to that which I'm most committed to. So I'm committed to having a clean neighborhood. Oh, good. I'm able to respond in that way. I can pick up trash
Yes.
because I'm committed to having a clean neighborhood.
Yes.
Right. And so if we get connected to what we're most committed to, that's beyond our own needs, right? Like, yes, we have to be committed to having our survival needs met. And I love the work you're doing to help, the disadvantaged folks meet those survival needs. Because once those are met, now we can start connecting into higher orders of contribution.
Yes.
And we become more able to resource ourselves to respond to our, higher order commitments of care, compassion, kindness, as Karen was saying, for all beings. And it's just not just people that look like me or live in my neighborhood or, cheer for my teams, etc. But we begin to shift our consciousness, as you and I have had previous conversations. That shift in consciousness where that me orientation really begins to let loosen up, and we start to see ourselves much more as part of the communities we participate in. And then we become more, our sense of self becomes more committed to, oh gosh, I'm part of human beings. I'm part of all life on the planet. And so as we shift and we become more connected to life in that way, the way we see things and think about things and talk about things and the action we take and what we stand for in our work and how we go about efforting and what we're up to, like all these things shift. And fully human is really inviting us all into this conversation. We don't have the answers, but we have compelling, deep questions around who do we have to become so these patterns of violence stop.
Absolutely. And as you say, we don't have the answers, but what we're doing is we're saying we're committed to exploring the question. And
Yeah.
that's where that to me is the first step. Is committing to exploring the question of not only the violence, but like I said, the hate that produces the violence. I mean, what do I've always believed that you can tell a lot about a person by what they read.
Mm.
Like if I walk into your home and I see, books or maybe even lack of books, that to me is going to say a lot of things, right? Your books, I could be wrong. I know it's a judgment. I think that's one of the things we all have to struggle with is making sure we don't prejudge,
Mm.
or if we do prejudge, because it's our society forces us to, we don't let that form a bias,
Yeah.
right? You quickly turn that off. Okay, I'm judging. Let me stop. Let me shift my consciousness, right? And that's
Yeah.
kind of what I'm working on doing. And
Totally.
you know, and within that space, what I want to do is make sure that I ask people this question: what are you committed to, right? So I believe
Yeah.
we all have to be committed to something, right? We may not necessarily be committed to the exact same thing, but what are you committed to doing, right? Like for me, I'm committed to growth. And that's all I can really ask from individuals, that I want to be a better person tomorrow than I am today.
Mm.
And what can I do to make that happen? Who can I meet? Who can I, what books can I read? What can I study? What can I experience to manifest that into my existence? That I'm a
Mm.
better person, and a better from my judgment, not better from anybody else's judgment. When I say better, like for example, I want to be a better listener,
Mm.
right? I want to be a better son, right? I want to be a better business consultant, a better real estate consultant. And for me, it's that growth that I'm committed to. I'm committed to growing. And so that's what I believe. If everybody kind of has that mindset of, I want to grow,
Mm.
because life is going to come at us no matter what, right? We're going to get hit if you're living in this world, you're going to get hit with challenges. That's
Mm.
how I look at them. Not necessarily problems, but challenges. And challenges makes us better as human beings, how we manage those challenges. That's where wisdom comes from,
Absolutely.
you
Yeah.
know?
I love what you're saying here. This commitment to growth, which means I'm also committed to not being right.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so much of where we get sideways, what I see in my own life and in folks that I live and work with is when we become more committed to our own righteousness and our own need to be right, is when it starts getting a little squirrely. And if we can be committed to some shared sense of, well, okay, I understand that you, in whatever context we're in, a parental context, a spousal context, a co-working or partnering context, is like, okay, I understand that you're an individual that has wants and needs. Great,
Yeah.
so am I. And so, what shared wants and needs do we have, and how do we make sure that your individual wants and needs and my individual wants and needs are included in and transcended by the conversations we're in, so that your needs are met, my needs are met, and together, our needs are being met. And so, values being created, throughout that whole. I love Karen's language about interdependency. We have consideration for all stakeholders. This is one of those beautiful stakeholder relationship model tenets of conscious capitalism, which you and I connected on, right? If
Yes.
we're if we're staying in these natural tensions that exist, committed to inquiry, beautiful. We're going to ask questions and stay in those tensions such that the interests of all parties get surfaced and we can arrive at some synthesizing of all those interests of stakeholders, such that we're creating exponential value through that whole stakeholder ecosystem, not trying to maximize one particular dimension of that shareholder or stakeholder ecosystem.
Right. Right.
So our commitment to the benefit of all versus being attached to me being right or having my needs met irrespective of as to whether anyone else's are.
Well, see, I like the ending there because I want to explore that.
Yeah.
Because when we look at, and this is what I truly believe, that when you are working towards self mastery and freedom
Mm.
and that growth, right? That journey, it's not a destination, it's a journey. Is that when you realize that we are here and everything is energy and everything's connected. That when you meet your needs, my needs are met. I just need to understand how that comes into reality.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying? As long as I
Mhm.
see myself separate from you, then I see your needs and my needs as two different things.
Yes.
But if your needs really is love and compassion and understanding, and when they're met, if that's really my needs at the end of the day, how that manifests in our lives, from a Maslow's hierarchy needs standpoint. But my point of the matter is getting to the point where we all are concerned about making sure that each person's needs are met.
Mm.
And again, I'm not speaking of the needs from a person who's sitting at home or chooses to be homeless, right? And you're saying, I just given up and I don't want, I'm going to be if I'm doing drugs or whatever it is that's causing you to have those angst in your life. I'm not saying I'm concerned about your needs in that context. I'm saying from the person who is seeking growth, who's seeking love, who's working towards that path, that's the person I'm more concerned about connecting with. And if
Mm.
I can connect with you and your needs are met at that love level, then my needs are met as well. As a
Mm.
result of that, right? The energy of that, the connectedness, right? We talk about fully human connections. That's what I want to aspire to, right?
Mm.
And I know that I'm not there now, right? But that's the ongoing goal, right? That's me going with Stephen R. Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, beginning with the end in mind. My
Mm.
end is that goal, and then I want to get there. So now along that journey, I'm going to have all kind of experiences and challenges that's going to test me, but I need to have that true north that guides me to that destination.
Beautiful. What I'm hearing and translating through my own filters of you offering as um, picking a way of being to move through life, choosing that way of being such that that's how I get into my doing. And what I end up having out of that will be born from this love, right? So if I'm going to choose, I'm going to choose to have a way of being in life that emanates love and connectedness and kindness and compassion. Great. That's what's moving me. That's what I'm running on.
Yes.
That's my fuel.
Yes.
Good. So in my doing, that is what is inside my doing. I'm doing from a place of love. I'm doing from a place of kindness. I'm doing from a place of compassion. So whatever results I have will have that essence within it. And you're like when I heard you say I'm not there yet, I would say I don't know. I would invite you to look at that. I would say you have really adopted a beautiful way of being in the world. And if we in a lot of the work I do, we play with that math equation, if you will. A lot of us say with the end in mind, well, I want to have this. Great. Well, what do I need to do to have that? And we just start doing to have, 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 without really attending to the quality of our being. So many folks, and a lot of folks that I coach, like want to have great results. They're high performing, corporate athletes, if you will, and they get burned out
Yes.
because they do and do and do and do to get these exceptional results, and they end up being exhausted, burned out, disconnected, because they're attached, their sense of self is attached to some outcome having to be a certain way in order for them to feel like they're enough. That's where I was. And that's where this stuff was born from. Oh, I'm not enough unless my bank account looks like this, my house looks like this, my car looks like this, my partner looks like this, my kids, right? I had so much of my sense of self and enoughness and worthiness connected to these things that I had, not who I was. And as all those things go away, the havings go away in the law of impermanence. Oh, well, now who am I? That brings about existential crisis. At
Yes.
least in my condition. Brene Brown talks beautifully to this in her work around the midlife crisis. How we all eventually wake up, you and I've talked about this. We wake up to the point where it's like, oh gosh, it's not all about me anymore.
Yes.
So who do I need to become? And then how do I reorient my doing, my thinking, my speaking, my actions, my work, my effort towards serving others, not towards me collecting more trophies.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, but to me, what I'm hearing in what you're saying as well is that that's where I believe our whole educational system needs to change,
Mm,
right? Like, what if our education system was designed to teach children from an early age how to be fully human, right? And really get into that kind of a conversation, the curriculum, the exercises, everything that kids are experiencing is to be human. Recognize the differences in the humans, but appreciate that as opposed to um, discouraging that or belittling that or actually negatively dealing with that. Like for example, you pick up a box of crayons, right? If it's all one color, that's not a box of crayons you're going to enjoy, regardless of whatever color it is. But when you look at it and you realize, well, there's 52 colors in there.
yeah.
I can play with all of them. They're uniquely different. They're going to give me a different combination if I play with these colors in different ways, and I can be creative, right? That for me is how we should look at human beings, regardless of a person's color, gender, sexual orientation, all these things. They still have a heart. They still have a
Mhm.
passion. They still have love. And to me, if a person is at a stage in their lives where they've committed to growth, that's a person I want to build with. That's a person I want to engage with. And if a person is not in that space, that's a person I choose not to want to engage with, right? Because to me, at this stage in my life, your energy that you're going to bring to me, again, this is where the system engineering in me comes into play. I don't see any logic in having that kind of energy around me,
Yeah.
right? And I know that's what I wrestle with. I have to turn off the logic brain sometimes as I
Mm.
journey towards this growth of empowerment between spiritual development and personal development, right? But at the end of the day, that's what keeps me in a positive state of mind, right? Waking up feeling gratitude. Here's
Mm.
what I'm grateful for. And then connecting with other people who have that kind of energy. Like, for example, you and I are having this conversation and we co-created this podcast together. The name, the platform, the purpose. And then within that organic process, we attract Karen, who's engaged with us. And she's posting great comments, and I love the things that she's posting. And it's like that to me is the beginning process, the genesis of how we deal with all the hate in the world. See, what I believe, if we begin to come together and say to ourselves, well, once we realize that mass shootings are going to continue to happen, whether they're schools, whether they're churches, whether they're stores, they're going to continue to happen because hate is there. How do we begin to prepare for that through love, right? And let that become the start of a fire that will then grow, right? And to the point where we tell the media through our own actions that we no longer want to just hear negative news. We want you to report about some of the good things that's happening in the area, right? Some of the police officers out there who actually are doing good. Report some of those stories because I know that yeah, those officers exist as well.
Yes.
I know there's definitely bad officers, absolutely, but there's also officers that are good who are actually doing good things to the community. How come it never gets reported? You
But
know, just kind of shifting that mindset from only focusing on the negative is what I'm going with.
yes. Yeah. Well, so you're pointing to some of the fundamental underlying dynamics of reality as best as I can tell, and that's paradox. Love and hate are going to coexist. So how do you learn to love hate? If you want to transcend it, right? Like the inhale and the exhale coexist.
Hmm.
North and south coexist. East and west coexist. High tide and low tide coexist.
Yes.
They're not so much opposites as they are complements. Joy and sadness coexist. They often co-arise. And so it's a matter of how we're paying attention because what we look for, we'll find. If we're out there looking for, reading for, listening to all the hate speech and all that kind of stuff, we'll find it in spades. What I hear you saying is there's a request for us to amp up and turn up all the good stuff, all the love. Like, let's turn up that radio station because that's also here. I guarantee you, in all of the pain and rage and anger that exists in Texas right now and all over, anyone who's connected to this, simultaneously, there are beautiful acts of love and care and compassion co-arising to wrap our arms around those poor souls suffering.
Yes. Yes.
And so your invitation, and as Karen is speaking to here, it's conscious choice to practice looking for things to be grateful about. It's an active, conscious practice to choose to look for things to be happy about and to connect with people about, because we're evolutionarily programmed to look for threats. It was part of our survival biology.
Yes.
So we have a negativity bias and we're always going to see the threats and the problems first. Good. See it and then choose to look for the possibilities. Be able to respond to the threats that we all see, to the challenges that we all see, and choose to engage from love. That's the practice. That's my daily practice. I notice when I'm engaging from fear or anger or shame or defensiveness or whatever. I say, whoa, 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 whoa. That's not who I want to be.
Yes.
That's not who I want to be. So as soon as I love how Norm called this out in your conversation with him yesterday, this definition of consciousness. It's our ability to catch ourselves in the act of living life. I love the way he languaged that.
Yes.
And when I can catch myself in the act of living my life, and I get to see my way of being as coming from fear or diminishing someone or diminishing myself, and I come awake to that. Oh, stop. Stop. Choose. Oh, okay, sorry. We all have this. We all have this tendency. This is part of what Fully Human is about as well. It gave me a gift when I got this reflection. Oh, I can hold all of my anxieties. I can hold my neuroses. I can hold my depressions. I can hold my anger. All these things that every human life has that none of us really like. Well, we got to find a way to like these parts of us. Otherwise, we're going to keep doing stupid stuff like what just happened in Texas. I'm pretty sure the person who did that didn't have a high sense of self.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I bet you that they didn't start off each day with a gratitude. See, people don't realize just that little shift of waking up and saying, here's what I'm grateful for at the beginning of each day, how that frames your mind for the rest of the day, right? Because even though you may be financially broke in a point where your account's negative, or you're having failure with signing up new accounts this week, right? Things look bleak from that perspective financially. You may have just broken up with your spouse, all those things. You may be disconnected from talking to your kids, but still, if you can wake up and you're alive and you can see and you can hear and you have sound mind, that's enough to be grateful for. That's a starting point of being grateful. And once you create that energy, other things begin to change your life as well. No one wants to do business with someone who's negative, right? No one wants to, interact with someone who has a negative spirit. And my point is, I believe if you begin to condition your mind and frame your mind with that decision, I don't think you can spiral down the rabbit hole of I'm going to go kill someone,
Mm.
right? Because you've already conditioned your mind to be grateful, and grateful to me automatically works in hand with kindness,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
And you begin to start picking from that part of the tree of here's what I want to accept, here's how I want to think, here's how I want to be, right? How can I be more grateful? And start talking to other people who are grateful, and you start learning from them what they're grateful for, right? And to your point, we can lose all the material possessions, and that may end up being a blessing in one extent, as opposed to being something that, because we think we want that in the moment, but it may, how things may work out, how we grow as individuals, they may actually end up being a blessing. But
Totally, totally.
you know what I mean? So, and you learn that through wisdom, and you get wisdom from going through pain, from growth and experiences.
So much good stuff you're saying here. Like, so bring a little song lyrics in here as a lifelong musician, and I think music and poetry, we bring this into our work because it penetrates the logical, rational psyche differently. Chris Christopherson in his famed "Me and Bobby McGee" song that Janis Joplin made famous. Freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose, is the lyric.
Right.
So I'll link this to a part in my life where I was not working. I was out of money. Had just been divorced. I was trying to figure out how to be a co-parent to my two little kids. And I was so depressed because I had lost everything.
Yes.
Everything that I was, my ego and my sense of worth and sense of self was attached to, evaporated.
Yes.
And I was in so much pain, egoic pain. And I asked the question, what's the gift? What am I not seeing? Right. And
Right.
I heard in the call and response, well, Kent, you're learning who you actually are without all this other stuff that you thought was you. Oh, so now I'm at choice. Who do I want to choose to be from this place of freedom? I've got nothing left to lose. All these egoic things that I identified my enoughness with are gone, yet I'm still here, whoever that might be.
Exactly.
Let's get to meet who that person is after everything I thought I was unraveled.
Yes.
That's a beautiful place. It's a scary as hell place.
Right.
Make no mistake. It's literally, the dark night of the soul.
Yes.
And simultaneously, if one can orient themselves as a creator and get connected to what we're most deeply committed to. Oh, I have little kids. It's no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. Oh, depression's the leading cause of disability on the planet. Oh, what if all this depression and anxiety is not an illness? What if it's a healthy immune response to a society that's been patterned in pathology, such that things like what happened yesterday keep happening? So what future do we want to create? And like you and I are doing here, we're inviting a conversation for what do we want to create together from a higher order commitment? What's our work as a species, as interdependent human beings? How do we think about life generations into the future, not just this quarter?
7 generations, correct?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So waking up and saying, oh, I'm committed to something that's bigger than my problems and challenges that I'm inevitably going to face.
And it's through those problems and challenges that shape us.
100%.
Because as you just talked about, what you had to lose from some of the physical trappings,
Mhm.
the marriage, those things, they're painful in that moment. And that pain may linger for a period of time, right? It may never even dissipate fully.
Yeah.
But look at who you've become as a result, right? Growth and it's universal, and that's why I really love the 7 habits of highly effective people, because when you really understand that everything operates off universal principles, that you can't argue against universal principles, right?
Right.
And
First
in,
principles. Yeah.
and universal principles is that growth usually brings you what seems to be unanimous or aligning with growth is pain,
Yes.
even from beginning of life. Like when a woman brings a child into the world, there's pain that woman experiences from that, but that's growth. So because we honor and we are connected to that pain, and then we realize from there love comes from that, because we
Mm.
realize through that pain and through that healing there's a love that comes with it. That's what forms that bond. I mean, if a woman can just walk down the street and literally just drop a baby as easy as dropping a dollar bill and just keeps walking, is there any connection to that? Right? So that whole act is designed for building a bond, building a connection, having to go through 9 months of that process, right? Of changing her body, changing her mind, changing her emotions in order to produce that life.
Yeah.
And to me, from their very essence, is teaching us that through growth, and as we have growth spurts, there's some pain in that. You know, your body's changing. There's some pain in that. But when you work out, and as you know this from competing the Ironman and completing the Ironman challenge, you recognize that pain that you had to go through to be able to do something on that level. But there was growth on the other side of that. There was growth through that process, and you feel a much better person as a result of that process, right?
Absolutely. Again, it's what am I committed to? What do I care about that's bigger than the inevitable pain that life is going to bring me? That's first noble truth in Buddhism. Life is hard, life's suffering. Part of life is painful. Great.
Yes.
Great. So I accept that. Expecting it to not be hard, expecting it to not hurt, expecting it to not be painful creates more pain.
Right.
Hermann Hesse, who wrote Siddhartha and Steppenwolf and a number of really great books, wrote once, it's it's not our pain that causes our suffering, it's our resistance to our pain that causes our suffering.
Absolutely.
So learn to love the pain, right?
Absolutely.
What is it that I'm committed to that's bigger than and beyond the pain, that I know is on the other side of that pain? And
Absolutely.
so, choose. So either any path that anyone's on is hard. And so, choosing to be on that path from a place of being in this together, being in this in service of uh, others and all of life, not just winning. I remember a funny story. Like my former wife, we were playing ping pong one day, and I was better than her. And one night she's like, it's not fun to play ping pong with you when you always win. And like she was so right. And it occurred to me, it's like, oh wait, it's actually called playing ping pong, not winning ping pong. And in that moment that she shared that reflection with me, I was more interested in catching myself in the act of living life, such that for some reason I felt like I always had to beat my wife in ping pong.
Right.
Rather
Right.
than like, let's just have fun and who cares? And if she wins some, like, great, she's having more fun, I'm gonna have more fun. It's a better relationship. I don't always have to win. And this is when you were talking about going into business with folks, and it's like, if we're going into business with folks that have to win, inevitably at some point I'm going to be on the losing end of that person needing to win.
Absolutely. 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 And see, when we get to society, when we get to the part in society that we actually want to truly honor the win-win, not just say it because it sounds good, but truly honor to say, what would it look like for us both to win, right? Where I don't get 100% of what I want and you don't get 100% of what you want, but we both walk out with something that we want that we didn't have previously, and we both walk out as winners, right? And typically, I'm in one of the fields that I'm working in real estate. That's usually not the culture of real estate.
Mm.
The culture is to buy the property as low as you possibly can and sell it for as much as you possibly can, right? And if you have that mentality, there's going to be some people that's going to lose on both ends. The person who's selling you the property is going to lose. The person who's buying a property from you in the future is going to lose because your your desire to win is what's motivating that.
Yes.
And it reminds me of, again, going back to the book by Deepak Chopra of the
Mm.
Seven Spiritual Laws of Success. And one of the hardest ones that I still work to master is the law of detachment.
Mm-hmm.
When you detach yourself to your point from the outcome that you talked about with your wife, your ex-wife at that point. The outcome of just, I want to win, it's not the outcome, right? When you say the goal is to experience joy with each other right now in this moment.
Exactly. Yes.
That's
To
what the
play.
goal is. That's what the
Right.
goal is. Whether whoever wins is irrelevant. As long as we both had a good time, we both had joy, and we both spent this moment together, that
Yes.
is what we want to focus on, right?
Yes.
What do I really get by saying I won? I get to sit here and dance, my ego, dance around, belittle her, make her feel bad, make her not want to play, not understand why she doesn't want to play, because as much as you tap into that, feed that ego, it's going to be to the point where you become obnoxious to her and she doesn't want to deal with that anymore, right? So all that's to say that to me is we talk about, again, fully human connections,
Mm,
right? And I'm really big on connections, right? I call my company King Connections. I look at myself as a connector, right? Connecting with other individuals. But now, as we talk about that fully human connection, what I had to realize first and foremost, I had to be humbled through my experience, is that I had to connect with myself first. Because I look at when things are not going right in my life. And when I say right, I'm judging that based off what I want.
mm.
And that's saying that I believe I'm out of alignment with integrity. What am I out of alignment with? Integrity. So let me connect with myself. Let me stop, do a deep introspective analysis of who I am as an individual, what my past behaviors may have been. Because again, one of the things that I've learned that was to me was one of the most profound statements is that we judge ourselves on our intention. Others judge us on our actions.
Mm.
So in our minds, my intent is this, so I'm good. I'm a good person because these are my intentions. However, are you really, your behavior is really in line with those intentions?
Yeah, this is where these perspectives get tricky because they're separate. Intentions and actions are different um, perspectives that can't be collapsed upon one another. So I'll give you an example, and I bump into this all the time in my coaching work. Is let's This is a real example. One company I was working with at one point, we had a leadership meeting, and there was one of the important leaders that wasn't there.
Hmm.
And so one of the other leaders was like, this is BS, so and so is not here, they don't care. They were judging the fact that that person's behavior, that they weren't there, meant that their intention was that they don't care about this team.
Hmm.
And I had to say, oh, I'm sorry, that person's not here actually because their kid's in the hospital. So their intention has nothing to do with not liking this team.
Right.
Their intention is they're taking care of their kid first.
Yes.
So you're projecting that this person doesn't care because they're not here is not true. It's inaccurate, and it's harmful to the dynamics of the team.
Yes.
So the invitation for us all, self included, right, is like, notice, again, borrowing from Norman Wolf, right? Notice when I catch myself in the act of living life. When am I projecting some intention that I'm making up based on someone's action? In order for me to know their intention, I actually have to ask them. So it's this is one of those growth moments, right? When we're all just like, oh, how often do I project untruthfully someone's motive or intention based on what I see them doing or not doing?
Exactly. Exactly.
And so that's when I notice myself doing that. It's like, oh gosh, I'm being judgy. I'm not coming from gratitude. I'm not coming from kindness. I'm judging this person's intentions based on what I see them doing or not doing. A different choice I could make is, hey, what's motivating your choice to be here or not be here? I can ask a question. I can be curious and try to learn something and grow rather than being right and assert that I know why this person's not here.
Exactly. Exactly. You know, as I listen to you, again, it's really three books that really shape my thinking or
Mm,
shape my methodology, my ideology, my um, dominating thoughts, as you would. Again, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, Seven Spiritual Laws of Success, and then the Four Agreements.
mm.
And as you're talking about that, that's one of the four agreements is never assume,
Don't make assumptions. Exactly.
right? Don't make assumptions. Exactly. And that when you do that, because more 9 times out of 10, the reason that's so powerful is because 9 times out of 10, assumptions are always going to be negative.
Yes.
Assumption is never going to be positive. Like if someone, to your point, if someone doesn't show up for something, you're not going to say they didn't show up because maybe someone's sick. You don't think they didn't show up because they didn't want to be a part of it or they're lazy or whatever assumption you're going to make. 9 times out of 10 is going to be negative. Until you get to a point of such love and kindness within yourself
Mhm.
that when you mistakenly make an assumption and you know someone because of their character, then you can say, Oh, the reason they probably didn't show up was because they were busy, and they're gonna let me know later on why they were busy, and I'm sure it won't be an issue. And they'll explain to me because I know this is not like them to do that, right? But I just wanted to go there because when you were saying about that scenario, it brought up my mind about assumptions
Yes,
and how powerful those four agreements that we make are, and why that's don't take anything personal and never assume are two of the I think for me the most challenging of those agreements.
totally. And I find that the way you were describing that dynamic early, just a couple seconds ago, they collude with each other. It's like, oh, I notice someone doing or not doing something, and I start taking that personally.
Right.
And because I'm taking that personally, in order for me to feel good about myself, I start making assumptions about why they're doing this to me.
Yes.
And then I start being not impeccable with my word, that third agreement, and I start
Yes.
talking smack and talking from assumptions that maybe or maybe aren't anywhere near what's so.
Yes.
And that's not me being at my best. The fourth agreement,
Exactly.
and so these four agreements really work in concert with one another. And this all in my lived experience and my own personal experience. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just speaking from my lived experience. Taking things personally, being attached to things going a certain way, being attached to being right, needing to be liked, all that stuff that's personal, that's me oriented, is what gets high anxiety, higher depression, less skillful ways of connecting with myself, less skillful ways, therefore, of connecting with other people, and therefore less skillful outcomes.
Absolutely.
And so wake up to my active living life. Oh, I'm fully human. I have anxieties. I have I have all these things. Why? Because I'm human. Great. I can distinguish when that stuff comes up, and I can pause. I can bless, that part of me as part of my full humanity. And now I can say consciously, how would I like to choose to participate in how I'm seeing this, how I'm thinking about it, how I'm going to talk about it, and what my next action is going to be. That's the
Absolutely.
ongoing practice, because we all drift into that downward negativity bias, as you're saying, or automatic negative thoughts. Why? Because it's our biology, it's our physiology. That's just how we're programmed. So the muscles we need to exercise to grow are intentionally exercising those muscles. Gratitude, as you were speaking to, exercising those muscles of kindness and compassion and curiosity. Oh, I wonder why so and so's not here versus, well, they're not here because blah, 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 blah. It's like,
Absolutely. Absolutely. But see, it goes back to me, everything's energy. Like as you begin to feed that ego, right? And I forgot where I heard this saying, but I definitely believe it because I like the way the acronym they define ego as edging God out, right?
mm,
And when you look at and you say a lot of different religious dogmas, you see that God can also be a synonym for love. So
mm,
when you're saying edging God out, whether you're a Christian or not, you want to call that spiritual energy source God love. So edging love out. So ego is edging love out.
mm,
And we know that anytime we're not connected to love, we're not speaking love, we're not living love, then our life is definitely not going to be in alignment with who we are and our purpose. It never is, right? And for me, that's my goal on a daily basis is to do all things with love.
mm,
Augmentino once said, doing all things with love, right? And so for me, that's my quest. And that's the question I ask myself at the end of the beginning of the day. I want to do all. I make the statement. Then at the end of the day, I ask myself, did I do all things with love? And of course,
mm,
I did. Right? I'm human, but that's what the goal becomes on a daily basis. How can I improve? How can I be better? That that review of my analysis of my actions that day. And this is where journaling and all that comes into play. See, I didn't really learn the connection of how that journaling, uh, being grateful, prayer, meditating, all those things. I didn't see how they all link together until I really began to focus on how do I implement my higher purpose, which I believe is
Mm,
to serve,
mm,
and then connect with others.
mm,
Right when I really began to desire building relationships with folks who may not necessarily be from the same, again, societal tribes that society has put me in, same skin color, same gender, same geographic location, all those different things, same spiritual background, ethnicity. Then I had to realize that I must first connect with myself, connect with love, and through that, let that attract to me the people I can build with. I just want to wrap this up on my point on saying
mm,
this is that I think that's one of the reasons why you and I get along so well, because
mm,
you and I never talked about those books as far as the four agreements, the seven habits of highly effective people and the seven spiritual laws of success. But hearing that you've read all those, then you also not only read them, you internalize them, you know them. So that speaks to why we get along so well,
mm,
right?
mm. Yeah.
Where we've probably known each other for now for less than a month, at most 6 weeks, if I'm being generous. But yet and still, our connection is deeper than most that I've ever felt for folks I've known for years. And that's because we connected on threads. I call connecting threads that are much more um, personal
Mm.
to us as our spirit, right? Our spirits are connecting, and that's a deeper bond that we're building.
I couldn't agree more with what you said, and I love how you said all that, my friend. And so speaking from love, right? It's like I felt that love coming from you when we first met. I love the co-creative and collaborative spirit that you come to these conversations with, and we're going to be doing these. We're going to be doing these every Wednesday, right? This is how we're going to be expressing our love coming up in the coming weeks, and we want to invite people to come and connect with King and Kent and Fully Human Connections. Choose to engage from love. Exactly, Karen. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And see, that's where we're challenging individuals who listen to us, and we definitely want to engage with you, but choose to engage from love, right? Even though you might not necessarily agree, but choose to engage from love. And we're open to learn from that. We're open to discuss that, right? See, that's what I'm saying. Committed to growth. And that's the most important commitment we can make with each other. Is that if you committed to growth, that means that you're going to realize you're going to make some mistakes sometimes, and you're willing to grow and learn from those mistakes. Same thing with me. I'm going to make mistakes sometimes, but I'm willing to learn and grow from those mistakes. And through that process, the bond becomes stronger because now we're beginning to grow, right?
Yes, 100%. Gosh, there's so much I could riff off with you. One of the lyrics of one of my songs that I use music as a way to heal and deal with some of my harder, more challenging parts of my humanity. And one of the lyrics of a song was like, "Love is a game of being wrong," because that's when love really shows up, when I'm wrong. Because it's
Yes.
easy to love people when everything's great,
Yes.
when everyone's strong, when everything's going great. It's that's not love. That's easy, right? Like love shows up when something that was previously hard to be accepted is finally accepted and acknowledged.
Absolutely.
So when I'm wrong, oh, I get to love myself. Or when someone else is wrong, I get to love them and not do my I'm right dance. you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, as we get ready to wrap this up, um, let's wrap it up by giving any closing thoughts. What would be your closing thoughts? It could be a quote, just whatever you want to leave as a something for our
Yeah.
listeners
So,
to
so
reflect
what's
on.
coming up for me is a quote from Khalil Gibran in his work, The Prophet. And that quote is, "Work is love made visible."
Ah, love that.
So, how might we all love ourselves and one another more as our sense of our life's work? That's the question we hold as part of Fully Human. So, I'll just invite us all to be in that inquiry. How can I love myself and love others and have love be the force for my work in the world? Work is love made visible.
I love that. And since we're going to be on that love, I would say I want to give a quote by Sorkin. He says, "Love is the single most powerful and potent source for influencing and changing behaviors.
Amen.
And I believe that that's what we can do, is that we can begin to look at how we can change behaviors. And through the changing of behaviors, we can begin to look at reducing all this mass shooting and the desire to go out here and have that much hatred in people's hearts, right?
Yeah.
How do we Let's learn from this and let's grow from this. And again, Kent, I thank you for a wonderful episode. I thank you for being fully present. I thank you for also being a person who chose to become fully human and then take that and create a company from that. And through that exercise, you are exhibiting what I consider to be someone who is fully human. And I'm so honored and privileged to be connected to you.
Thank you, King. The honor and privilege is mine. I share it with you. I'm humbled to be in these conversations with you, and I love you. I love who you are in the world, and I look forward to us continuing to hold these conversations of fully human connections together.
And we want to also thank you for that. We also want to be grateful for Karen for
Yes, thank
speaking
you,
through our
Karen.
episode and giving us our first testimony. Excellent episode. So thank you, Karen, for that. We appreciate that. And so with that being said, everyone, we want to wish you a blessed day and want everyone to still look for, as Agamandino says, let's look for a way we can do all things with love.
Beautiful.
Bye, everyone.